Right, folks, let's get started. Welcome to you all. My name's Lloyd. I'm a recovering photographer. Shame of it. I'm going to keep things really, really simple today because part of my background is educational psychology. And one of the things that we discover is that any form of education that you do, and the more closely it's linked to looking at some sort of presentation on a computer, any guesses how much of it gets to the car park? Yep, spot on. 20% of what you hear is what actually gets to the car park. Not what you remember tomorrow, but just gets to the car park. Therefore, I'm going to cut down some very, very important points. There's no conning you into I'm ace, I do this, I do that, you should copy me. We're turning it into basic principles. I've been doing this for a long time. I've got a bias, which I have to be honest with straight away. My bias is when you're old and knackered like me and smell faintly of wee, you've got nothing left apart from your memories and your photos. Sadly, the first generation of people who got into digital photography, people who bought a digital camera 10, 15 years ago, they haven't got their pictures anymore because they're on these. How many of you have got somewhere to shove one of these other than the bin? You're a very sick person. Oh, what? I was hoping to get 5.5, but they're very, very scarce these days. Bitter story. Bitter story. The first digital imaging that I did on a CCD sensor goes back to 1974, 42 years ago. I used digital sensors ever since then. I cannot give you any examples because the first digital sensor I was using, this was all for video. The recorder had to be moved on a forklift truck. By 1978, I was using miniature recorders that fitted on my back with a handheld camera, and the recorder weighed much more than a tandem rig. Eventually, things got a bit smaller. VHS-C got invented. That was wonderful, except how many people can play a VHS-C tape now? Or a digital 8 tape? The problem is that most of our pictures go down the Sony, if they're electronic, because of changes in technology. And therefore, one of the things I've got to say to you is, please, your best stuff, get it printed. Get it printed now. Why? Remember, the only way you can see my early video work is if I took you either to the Museum of Film and Photography in Bradford, bit of a ball ache, isn't it? Or the repository for the Science Museum down at an old RAF airfield called Wroughton in Wiltshire. That's the only places in Britain where you can still play the stuff that I created back in the 70s and 80s. And the same is going to happen with the technology that you're using now, that you're recording on now. There's some people say that they can recognize my pictures when they see them in the magazine or on Facebook. I don't think I'm bullshitting about that because people come and accuse me of doing it. Would you say that looks like one of my pictures? It's got the look. All right. You just pass it over to Andy. Notice anything about the kit? Take. Yep. Yeah. loves my tricks with light. How old do you reckon it is?
Probably 30 years old.
Yeah, pass it over. I can't show you anything that I produced with a moving electronic sensor from 30 years ago. And none of you have got anything to play it on. But look at that photo. That is not kept in a bank safe, protected by a band of renegade unicorns. That print is 31 years old. It's absolutely pristine. It is perfect. So first major point today is protect your memories and get some prints of your best stuff done. All right? That is a 30-year-old print. Absolutely perfect. I've got another 30-year-old print to show you. Steve Nolan here. He's the guy that I started doing jump camera with. Right, that's a shot I took of Steve Nolan and an old accuracy ace called Alan Dumbbell. That print is 30 years old. Lots of people say, oh, but they'll go knacky, they'll fade. Steve, where's that print been living? Has that been protected in a bank safe by unicorns?
That's been on the wall of the packing shed for 30 years.
Right.
I didn't even know you had it.
We found, 2 weeks ago, we opened up the jump centre to do some recurrent training, except Sangeeta didn't turn up, or Courtney. And that was it, just a free refresher training for the students. Discovered getting in there that Cumbria's been flooded for the last 2 months. Our packing shed had been flooded. This has been on the wall. It was propped up on the floor. You can see a few stains on the back. So that's had 30 years old in a cold, damp and heated packing shed. And look at it. No, proper prints. Proper traditional photographic prints. Right. So, that is point one.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right, next thing. During the course of today, we're going to build up a series of concepts that covers everybody, from the people who just like to put on a GoPro to people who wear like Paul does, a serious camera rig, or Dave Curtin, serious camera rig, Jim over there, right? They cover competition work, they do all sorts. Everything you do today crosses all of them. How many people in here have got a GoPro? Okay. How many people here have got a GoPro 4? Okay. How many people with a GoPro 4 shoot in 4K? Sick puppy. How many people with a GoPro 4 shoot in 2.7K? All right. GoPros, you're completely wasting the abilities of the GoPro 3 and the GoPro 4 because you're shooting in the wrong resolution. The GoPro 3, the GoPro 4 shoot in higher resolution. Yeah, but it's only a 1080p telly, or the screen's only a 1080p. No. It's very fashionable these days to get yourself your audio, your music in high bit rate. It's got more detail to it. It's got more quality. And it's exactly the same with anything visual. One, to improve your GoPro, to get it up to the way the professionals do it, there's a series of changes to make. And what we'll do is we'll have a look at, see if we can get this up working on the screen. Right. Fair to say that's got like the look that you know it's one of mine. How do we do it? How do we do it, whether it's with a GoPro and it's a moving image, or do it with stills? the whole point behind this is, how do we get our stuff into a different league? How do we get our GoPro shots, initially we're talking about, how do we get it to look the way the shots look when it's in a GoPro trailer, when it's advertising GoPro? What have they done? What have they done? Okay? We want to do it in a way that doesn't cost us anything. Or if we do have to buy something, we want it to be the best value possible for us. So, how do we do it? The question is, how do we do GoPros? Resolution. First of all, higher resolution. Now this is for the GoPro people. It is for the people who are using a Sony CX on the side. It's for people who are using what looks like a still camera but records 4K video. Resolution. Just like with music, it sounds better if it's sampled at a greater bit rate. All pictures look better if they appear in a higher bit rate. That's it. Doesn't matter what the science is, it is the more bits of sound, the more bits in the pictures, the better. Therefore, what do the pros use? Wonder if we can come up with some useful information here. So how do pros set up their videos? You're going to get two names of people to look up. This isn't the sort of thing where you can sit and absorb stuff. Remember, only 20% gets to the car. So there's two names. Abe, with the letter Z, who is the chief guru at GoPro, and another guy called Mick Bergsma. Mick is an unusual fella. He really looks like he's straight out of Central Casting. An extra from the original Point Break. He is the original long blonde-haired, big white smile, surf dude. Mick is also profoundly deaf. He has got an amazing channel on YouTube where you can go and see, bit by bit, how to build up the most superb GoPro images without spending lots of money. And the first thing is, how do we get the colour looking like the first slide that I showed you? First of all, you've got to start exploring the settings for the colour and exposure and so on. And just remember one magic word, Protune. Maximum image quality comes from using Protune. Lots of people, especially with the GoPro 3, may have tried it and gone, ugh, oh, that's disgusting. Oh, that's vile. If you went into the daily rushes of a top budget cinema movie and you saw the daily rushes, you've all heard about that, but any of you ever been to rushes? You'd walk out. You thought they'd been the most terrible mistake because the colours are disgusting. It's flat, boring, there's no vibrancy to the colours, everything looks like mud. I'm going to be showing you some pictures later on for all the people with cameras here of my shots, how they come out looking like mud. But it puts people off from using Protune because it looks terrible. You've actually got to create the colours yourself. Lift that colour, drop that colour, open that shadow, bring these highlights up so you can see its sunshine. Don't take any of this and just believe it. You will be handed photographs to demonstrate it. All right? So settings on the GoPro, Protune. At first, GoPro were very smug that people couldn't copy how good their demo stuff looked. Then they realized that the software was holding people back. They were switching on Protune like it was recommended, and they went, oh, that's bloody awful. Put it back to where it was. So they put in a second setting on Protune. Second setting on Protune is just called GoPro. And the original one is now called Flat, which is the frightening, dull, horrible one. ISO, limit to 400. Sharpening on low, otherwise it gets too crunchy and too crisp. And finally, exposure on 0 unless you've got a lot of bright flashing highlights going to be happening. If you had a lot of people with white jumpsuits or Red Bull style metallic helmets or a polished side to an aircraft that you're exiting, in which case -5 to save the highlights burning out. All right? Protune. This will all appear to you by email or on Facebook when you're back home. It's too much for you to take in now. It'll never get to the car park. It is the resolutions and settings that will give you the spectacular images that you see in all these GoPro demo films. Basically, switching on the 4K, switching on the 4K there, switching on the 2.7K. Now, people are going, there's people quietly in rooms saying, I haven't got a 4K telly. Even though the price of them has now dropped below 300 quid for a 42-inch. So what's the story? What's the story? Why am I telling you to shoot in 4K? Why am I telling you to shoot in 2.7K? If you search the words Abe and GoPro, you'll find out he is the godfather at GoPro. He has got all the top tested settings. There are no secrets when you look at Abe, on his blog on the websites. He will tell you exactly what settings are being used to shoot these spectacular videos. He will tell you they're being shot in 4K or they're being shot in 2.7K. Wow, 2.7K. Oh, it must be worse. Unless you go to, what's the giant screen at the cinemas? What do they call that one? IMAX. Unless you go to an IMAX theatre, you are seeing full-size movies. What are they delivered in? Less than 2.7K. So 2.7K, oh, that's pretty good then for moving pictures. If that's what we're watching in the cinema, you've never looked at the screen at the movies much and thought, those pictures are crap, have you? Not modern digital cinema. So, more data, better pictures. But I shoot 1080p. All the GoPro people shoot 1080p, apart from one very strange guy at the back. What you do is you take this big, high-resolution file, and it's really technical, so listen really carefully now. Your software will all be slightly different, but you take the 4K timeline and you drag it onto an ordinary 1080p timeline. I know that sounds tricky, but that is how simple it is. You just drag 4K onto a 1080p timeline, which you normally edit on, and it'll blow your head off because there is so much more data there than on an ordinary 1080p camera. 1080p camera is doing this thing called pixel binning. Any idea what's pixel binning? The sensor of the camera has got much more than 1080 pixels on the side. So the processor is going, don't want that one, not having that one, you'll check that, blah, 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 blah. This is going to come up again when we talk about JPEG later. Pixel binning is throwing away most of your quality. If you put loads more quality in, and it throws it away, and it's going, I've still got more. It gives you an incredible increase in quality on your normal 1080p that you're going to put on YouTube. You're going to, hopefully, you'll choose something that's begins with a letter V, which will give you some better quality. So we're changing the color, and we're changing the resolution that you're using to get that look that you keep seeing on GoPro demo footage, and somehow yours never looks like that. Now then, it's all very well me spouting. I could put loads of examples up on the screen, but I could do anything with the stuff that you're seeing on the screen. I could lie. So what we're going to do is hand out some demos. If anybody is in this room and they're here for some inspiration, and it would help the inspiration to actually keep a photograph, just to remind themselves after they sober up tomorrow, what was that talk about? I am giving out photos. If there's one that you find is utterly convincing, that reminds you to remember that trying the new settings on your GoPro, feel free to keep it. Right. Let's do it this way. This is just so everybody can see it initially. In every case, you're going to get a sheet of photographic paper with the images taken digitally and then put onto the paper with a laser and then developed in the traditional way. They're real photographs, which means if you tip your dinner on it, you just put it in warm soapy water and put it in the airing cupboard to dry. So that is straight out of a GoPro. Every one of these photographs is straight out of the GoPro and printed at a top quality professional lab. And then underneath it is a picture that I've changed. Would you agree that's got some of the look that you associate with me? What the hell have I done? What have I done? What have I done? What I do depends on a bit of repetition. So just listen to this, and you hear it several times. I'm not trying to bore you. We're getting it, turning it into an earworm so it gets stuck. I do two things to all the photographs that you see. All digital images need to be sharpened. All of them need to be sharpened. However, I sharpen them in a very sneaky way. I sharpen the images selectively, so only the bits that need sharpening get sharpened, and the rest of it is left unsharp because it makes the colours richer. It makes fabrics and skies and jumpsuits look better, silky. Clouds look wonderful, fluffy. So that's what I've done to that. Let's go back to that. That's what came straight out the GoPro. There's going to be a whole series of these passed around so you can see and believe yourself. But I said I've done two things. I've sharpened it because all digital images need sharpening, except, especially with JPEGs, they sharpen everything. It's horrible. I only sharpen the bits that need sharpening. So the only thing sharpened on this picture of Brett is his goggles, his harness hardware, and stitching and details in the harness. Everything else is left just as soft as that one, but it looks crisper. Because the other thing I've done is purify the colour. All digital images, think about the pictures of mine that you've seen in the mag or on Facebook, what makes the difference? There is also, as well as that needing sharpening, I'll say it to you now, think of an old lady. Think of an old lady who's always got neck curtains, and she's looking at the world through neck curtains. She doesn't look after herself as much as she used to, and the neck curtains have gone grey. All digital pictures. Why do my pictures stand out? I take away the murky grey curtain that all digital images have. It's all very well him saying that, but he must spend bloody hours in Photoshop and stuff like that. Now, do you know how much the software was to change every one of these pictures that you're going to see? As long as you can get your images from your GoPro or any other camera onto your phone or an iPad or an Android, well, brace yourself for this, but jumping is an expensive thing. I changed that picture from the top to the bottom with a piece of software that costs £1.76. I know, but you've got to believe it's worth doing at that. £1.76. Oh no, the thing is I charge 40 quid to tell you. Right, going to start passing these round. If you could just run them along your own, then pass them to the back. And at the end, if anybody is really taken with it because it's going to fire you up enough to have a go at this yourself, you're welcome to have it. Right. Which one's straight out of the GoPro? Right. If any of these pictures are familiar, it's because they're ones that I've treated for use in the BPA calendar competition. So this was the 2015 calendar. So top one out of the GoPro, bottom one £1.76 worth of software. Yeah, it's all right, I will be telling you. Right, you want to pass it round? Which one would you like to appear on Facebook? That's just the question. Because that's where, again, let's be honest with each other. Your pictures probably get seen more on Facebook than anywhere else. Because you don't print them, do you? So, and occasionally people might have a look at your computer, whether it's at work, college, university, or the VZ. It's going to be on a TV screen. It's one of the secrets that I've got to give you in a minute. Right, Ming Chu, outstanding video man and photographer. Right, there he is. We'll start passing these back. Which one would you like to put up on Facebook? Is it worth £1.76? Right. Another one. What have we done? We've stripped away the dirty net curtain that all digital photos have. We've purified the colors. Right? You should be able to work out which is which if you start sending these back. Yeah, Pete. Right. Just point which side's the GoPro shot. If people at the back of the room can see the difference, what's it going to be like when it's right in somebody's face when they see it on Facebook or whatever? Is it convincing what £1.76 worth of software will do to your pictures? All right? So that's the first time I suggested that you spend money. The next suggestion for spending some money, well, actually, it's de-spending it. I've decided £1.76 is a bloody rip-off. I've decided that you can actually sell your GoPro and get something else. For the guys who jump with more substantial cameras on their helmets, this is the same software with your standard, like Craig does, follow out and shoot the tandem. Right? Gets passed around so you can have a look. One of them's had one click from software that I'm talking about. It does a thing called batch processing. So the guys who are working on an industrial basis, like Craig does when he shoots, like Steve does when he shoots it, you've got to suck those pictures in so that you can then export them to be burned to a disk, okay? Batch processing is when it intercepts the data going in, works its magic, and then burns it onto the disk for you, all right? I only give you pointers to stuff that will do that for guys who are working on a commercial basis. So you can pass that around. Right. I talked about de-spending now, right? The outlay of £1.76 is enough to make people faint. I understand that. So let's actually start saving some money now. I advanced the proposition that it might be worth considering that's a sum up on this resolutions business here. Again, you can get it by email from me, or it'll be going up on my Facebook page. And the recommendations, first of all, non-point of view means normal playing with the camera. And point of view is recommending 2.7K super view, or 30 frames or 60 frames a second later. Why? Because 4K doesn't do slow motion. I want to give you an earworm with 2.7K. If you're purifying the colors using the Protune software, if you're making it look crisp and clear, I'll tell you one more thing. High resolution, 2.7K, remember it's higher resolution than even the movies in a decent cinema. When you bring that down to 1080p, it will knock your eyeballs out in terms of color quality because of Protune, and in terms of sharpness because of 2.7K. I wasn't very polite about GoPros. They are an astounding rip-off. GoPro found out this Christmas, what a disaster. It suddenly smacked them down. They've had to lay off 7% of the workforce because they brought in a new, lesser camera, but tried to charge the full GoPro price for it. They've dropped the price 4 times now in the last month. and their sales have completely collapsed. They were due to collapse anyway. GoPro make a plastic case. Everything else is bought in. Batteries, lens, sensor, processor. Anybody know where the GoPro sensor comes from? Sony. Anybody know the actual digital processing chip that creates the pictures? Anybody know that one? I don't expect you to do. You're definitely sad if you do know. It's a company called Ambarella. So we've got a Sony chip, we've got an Ambarella digital processing. So, sorry, Sony sensor, Ambarella chip that does the hard work, plastic box, which is mainly filled with a battery. Oh, and the lens. Oh, the lens. Well, you see the pictures? It's a security camera lens. It's a black plastic barrel with a plastic lens that is designed and made for security cameras. Oh, yeah, but you've got a Sony sensor in, and you've got an Ambarella processor. That SJ5000 Wi-Fi with back screen, HDMI output, 16 megapixel, not 12, Ambarella chip, Sony 16 megapixel, complete iOS and Android control, and it comes with 13 different mounts. Oh, Jesus, how much is that going to be? 56 quid. A top, if you buy it with extra batteries, of 75 quid. You can search this out. So it's called an SJ5000, I think it's HD, and it's got Wi-Fi, a back screen, HDMI output, 16 megapixel, the same Ambarella chip as the GoPro is using, full iOS and Android control of it, and 13 different mounts. Just a reasonable lens. When I say reasonable, anything is better than the GoPro lenses. If you go onto YouTube, you'll see that it's heat glued in. And they show you with a hairdryer to loosen them off and change lenses or refocus the lens, because some people, especially when the 4 came out, didn't like it was the way it was focused. Distant stuff wasn't in focus anymore. They'd gone for the kayaking crowd and the skateboarders. And YouTube is full of people saying, hairdryer, twist the lens, check the focus, not right, twist it a bit more. Awful. How about this? One step down from the SJ5000, you've got the SJ Cam, SJ4000 HD, 12 megapixel. Way, same as a GoPro. It's got the same chips, it's got the same sensor, it's 35 quid. Or if you buy it with the forest of 13 different mounts, it's 53 quid. If you buy it with memory cards and extra batteries, it's 263 quid. When I say that, it's 263 quid. Remember, a GoPro is 320 quid. 263 quid buys you 4 cameras, 4 spare batteries, 4 memory cards. Those are all accurate prices as of last night. It gets much, much worse. What am I going on about here? Why am I talking about 4 cameras? Instead of having one GoPro, and it's just the dive from there to there. And then we packed, and then we went up to dive from there to there. Somebody I hugely admire, local jumper for our regular DZ, is Ming Chu. His stills are fabulous. His videos are fabulous because he doesn't do this. Start of the dive all the way through to the end of the dive. He records, say, 4 dives on a decent day. And then he edits them. He throws the vast majority of the dive away. Now, an awful lot of people can't stand doing that. But the fact is, if any of you have ever had filming for telly done on your airfield, they want to film everything 3 or 4 times from different angles in different ways so that they get the coverage for cutting between. So here's my proposition. Instead of using a GoPro, because some of you, I know, and obviously the people aren't here, you're not going to use the GoPro on its high resolution settings or Protune. I'd rather just keep doing what I'm doing. In that case, why not get a cheaper camera, but get 4 of them, strap them on you in different places, strap them on other people that you're jumping with, and actually film the same dive and cut them together. And that way, you're going to change. You're in here because you want to do something about the quality of your pictures and your videos. How about you'd like it to look slicker and more professional as well, and cutting the same dive so you see it 4 different ways for 263 quid, less than the cost of 1 GoPro. All you have to do in the aircraft on the run-in is clap your hands and you've got the mark. You know the clapperboard? You've got the mark, all the cameras have recorded it, and therefore you can now edit it all together. But I'm a modern person. I'm sure there's a better way of doing this. Sony's. And remember, what sort of lens does a GoPro have? That's a technical term, yes, shit. It's a black plastic tube where they shove lenses in for security cameras. You know, the security cameras from Screwfix for 20 quid. How about this? How about a Sony 19 megapixel? It hasn't got that little square thing. I use a G3. It goes really great on a G3. How about this, though? A Sony, one of the little side little action cameras. 19 megapixel. Ooh, quality. Oh, a Zeiss Tessar lens. Sorry, Zeiss Tessar lens. I bet there's even some glass in that. No, seriously, that's again the technical term for it. It's shit hot. It's absolutely stunning lens. But more than that, it's not just the lens that is from a legendary company. The sensor is stabilized. Do you understand what stabilized means? Right? How do I get my crisp, sharp pictures of people flying past doing swooping? Stabilized lens. Right? Works for video just as much as it works for stills. So you're getting a stabilized lens. Yeah, but it's a Sony. It's a posh lens. Well, it'd be dead expensive. Yeah, 160 quid at Argos now. This week, 160 quid at Argos, or more expensive, a ghastly 180 quid if you buy online, but that comes with spare batteries. Are you beginning to get the picture about GoPros? I've got a GoPro. I have got a GoPro. I've paid full retail for a GoPro. I need a GoPro. I have to have a GoPro because of the drone that I've got, it's the only camera that balances properly, right? So I am a GoPro buyer, but I'm not a fool either. So, let's say I'm afraid this gets worse. The same camera, got a 19 megapixel, loads of detail, stabilized, Zeiss, oh my God. Wrist mount screen and controller. You know, like a Larson and Bruscard wristband. We put an LT on, you know, electronic LT. Imagine that, but it's a TV screen. And so none of this, you know, is it on? Is it on? You look at your wrist and you can see the picture and you press record. All right, let's go. You stop it, you start it, all on your wrist and you can check it, right? 230 quid. Now then, final one on the GoPro side of things. Hang on. All right, I've got to zoom through this very quickly. There's a camera there, and it's a small action camera, side-mounted. It's 4K. It's got a stabilized Zeiss lens. It's got full pixel readout. It's not throwing pixels away. Top quality. Wrist mount controller with time code. What the hell's time code? Anybody know what time code is? Time code is what you got in a TV studio. It is code put onto the recording medium so that all cameras are working on the same time. Oh, yeah, well, so what? It means that if you've got that camera with the wrist mount and you get more cameras, your wrist mount will control 5 cameras and put the time code on them so that when you put them on the computer, you're working like a TV director in a studio. You are just selecting the view that you want to create it. It is all completely perfectly lined up. Right, quick whiz, we've got to move on. Oh, prices at the moment, $600 with the wrist monitor, and for your cameras, because you only need one wrist monitor for it, $500. So that you can do leg mounts. They've got amazing wrist mounts for Sony with 16 click positions on a wrist mount, as people like Dunkaswell have introduced the wrist-mounted videos for things like tandems. Do some amazing stuff there.